Hey. Hey, family, what's good? Hey, and I don't plan to be on here very long because, like I said, I'm cutting my segments. I can't do them 5 hour segments once I get off of work, because I get off of work at 2:30 and then I rush over to my um studio side of the room. Hey, Straight Smoke, Original Intellect, Sammy, Lady Moon, David, Copper. Hey, Copper Engine with your pretty self. What's going on, girl? Hey. Hey. So, um, I was gonna do the Buddha today. I actually don't have to. I'm done because now I'm reading the book for myself. I'm gonna read it all over again, but to myself in my own privacy. I think everybody gets the gist. I asked you guys to, order the book, and I'm only, recommending this to people who don't find connection in Christianity. All right. I'm just giving you another coping mechanism to use that helps you and get you, your emotions and yourself right in your head. And this seems to be working for me. Okay. As long as I can put a smile on my face after reading some motivation and correction on myself, I'm good. So I'm good with this. It's not all that extra, but I really like it. It works for me. It might not work for everybody. Everybody has their own, connection energy wise. And this connects me. So that's that. So I did a lot of reading on Buddha and I really appreciate Geshi if you're out there listening, because I did hashtag you. I am strongly recommending your book. I really love it. And I'll be going in your book to get more of your writings because he has writings, other writings that he have for like direction. So I'm gonna be doing that on a personal note. That's for me. So I hope I help somebody out with as far as recommendation for some kind of guidance, spiritual guidance, and that's really helpful. So moving along, today's segment. Hey Anthony, how are you? Today's segment, and I'm not going to make it long, but I'm going to try and be as quick as possible. Um, but it is what it is. And this picture always, brings sadness to me because it really is a great depiction of our families leaving the South and other areas of the states where they had to move. And I always point, to the Indian Removal Act and with President Andrew Jackson's in Congress, where they gave us an option to give up our lands because we didn't have fiat. And for whatever reasons, whether it was taken by eminent domain, but for the most part, being taxed fraudulently. And that statement that just resonates in my head of the verse in his transcript. And this is actual proof, and its primary source. And, those of us that did not wish to go, removed from our lands, all of us that said, no, we're not going to leave our lands and go to Oklahoma or to the West. We don't want to do that. So it was forced removal in many, many ways. And he stated that those wishing to remain in the East, for those that in the East that didn't want to go voluntarily, would become citizens of their home state. So wherever you were, even wherever you were in the world, in this on this landmass within the boundaries of the 50 states, if there was a state named, if your land automatically became a part of a state, you were subject to those laws. not only of the state but of the municipality. You could have had land, and the municipality decided to make it a municipality, and your land was included and subject to that municipality for taxes. Um, and also, your land was very much subject to eminent domain. So those wishing, our parents that did not go, our ancestors that did not go during these times, they remained, and a lot of the result from them remaining was pushing them in these crowded homes, and it just brings tears to my eyes when I read those wishing to remain in the East would become citizens of their home state, and the removal was supposed to be voluntarily and peaceful, and it was for the tribes that agreed to the conditions. And as you can see, if you have uh 20 slaves, 16 to 20, 13 to 20 slaves on your farm, it's your family. So the agreed conditions, you're pushed in the inner city hoods in these little apartments, and you see what a typical family looked like in our inner cities. And it's painful because I remember these conditions in the 70s as a little girl, overcrowded homes. So if you count how many people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people. And I don't think they made more than 3-bedroom apartments in our hoods. Um, Actually, they were 2-bedroom apartments. Some families were so big that if you they would open up what's called an emergency door and make it uh big enough to fit 2 families. So you would have 2 bedrooms, 2 kitchens, 2 living rooms. They would connect the departments through what is called the emergency door. And so, yeah, those conditions were just horrible coming up in the 70s. And I remember that. And it's been like that since. But then, they started knocking them down and putting up these little cardboard um, townhomes in our communities. A great wind blow and blow it out, blow it off the scene. But yeah, I always see these kind of pictures. So I'm going to get into today research and genealogy, connecting your past or present communities. And it's through research and genealogy, bringing actions against state governments and agencies and presenting proof to United States federal government. Okay. So I want to get into that today. And one of the greatest ways to connect with your communities is by conducting surveys in our hoods. Now, if you notice, for the life of me, um, I learned, in grad school, research, writing, and conducting surveys is one of the biggest ways to connect and get information from those in your communities, in our communities, in the inner cities. And as you know, no one really goes around. Hey, Lady Moon, I see y'all out there. And shout out to everybody watching. As you may know, and I know a lot of my colleagues from all over, and whether it's political or childhood friends, are watching and listening in while they're at work. And shout out to you. They do take our ideas and they try and run with it. And and the least they could do is say thank you. Um, One of the ways to connect with our communities is, I find, would be through research and surveys. So what I put together was a 21 question survey. And what I'm going to do is go out in my hood and set up a table, and I have surveys for people to answer. and it's generational survey. It has to do with genealogy. And it's interesting to know, not only in my state, of course, I'm going to share it with my tribe members to see if they would go out, pick a day and at least get like 50 to 100 people to respond to the survey. We have the beautiful thing about Wire, we have a member in all the 50 states. So if the bigger states, they probably get more responses. And of course, we'll give them, something, for a little something for responding to the survey. And I just want to share with you um, why it's so important that we conduct our own research. Number one, because nobody gives a damn about the hood people. They really don't. They don't. I can't, for the life of me, remember a time where anyone raised a surveying concern of our people. I think the last time someone came out and asked questions was back in the 80s when AIDS came out and everybody was petrified and they wanted to know if people slept with animals and things of that nature, but nothing else. And then you get these little um, pamphlets in the mail from your senator who you don't see. You get a little picture in the mail with his picture on it and about legislation that they want to put forward. But in your mailbox, it's no legislation that you asked them to put forward. That's because they don't come out and visit you. They don't give a damn. So when we read a lot of research and their results, you don't make a difference. You don't. The inner city is not included. This is why I say with medicine, they do the same thing. Research with medicine, they test people, and the people they test, they use it to come up with their uh, um, um, results of side effects. Many people taking this side effect tested that took this medication said that it did this to them, it did that to them. I bet you don't remember anything coming around in your community as like a survey or something. Did this have to see if you had any side effects? They don't give a damn. And this is why I said it's so important that we have so much work in our communities to do, so much work. And it's just why my time on YouTube is just going to be lessened. Because if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Okay. So, one of the things I want to know, and because it's what I do, is genealogy. And I can get my solid primary information from people generally in our community. Now, we also have to be careful when we're conducting surveys with people. You have to make sure that they are actually the people of this land. And you have to ask questions, people that look like you. You want to make sure that they're actually from this land and have always been a United States citizen from earlier days, because all the islands that are connected to the United States have not been with us until they didn't come on to the United States until the 1900s. Okay. So they were British governments, and a lot of them are not us. They were literally British governments. So in my state, I have to be very, very careful. In the bigger states like New York as well, because everybody from Jamaica is not from here. So I really want to get the people who are really from here. So I wouldn't waste their time. So and it's not being racist or anything. We have to get the people that were severely affected by United States government that are indeed citizens, and you are able to prove your rights have been violated. Okay, because people that were born in Jamaica, they don't have United States birth certificates. So that's why this is what I'm saying when I say that. And their ancestry could trickle back to here, but it doesn't. They weren't enslaved by the United States. Okay, that comes from British. That's why when I look at the Jamaican records, that's British government records. It's not United States records. Okay. So I have to be very careful. And I know, like I said, I know the people of this landmass and who has gone through Indian Removal Act. Okay. So if we're looking for people who have gone through Indian Removal Act, their ancestors, I have to just focus on those individuals that were on this landmass that were deemed black, written black. They were written out of history. There's so much involved. So one of the things I did was I said, I really want to conduct this by generation. So I put the surveys together. I got to go out and, of course, make copies. Why? We got to make a lot of copies because I want to at least get a couple of hundred people and a couple of thousand in my state. I'm going to do specific cities in Connecticut. We have very big cities in Connecticut, and that's Hartford, New Britain, Bridgeport. I have to pick some days, so it's going to take a while to complete the survey, but that's only in Connecticut. Now I have to get people in my community to do their particular town that they're living in bigger cities. Okay. And I think it'll be fun for them. And I think they'll like it once they see me do it and I do it live. I'm going to do it live. And so I put the surveys together by generational breakdown. So let's take a look at those surveys. Let's take a quick look. As a matter of fact, I would like to put the link in the chat. Hi, Leonard. Hi, Cynthia. I'll put the link in the chat in case someone, may have a question. Let me pin this to the top as I'm going through it. Because I didn't one thing with our people, and I know you don't want to give them this like 50-page survey. So I limited it to 21 questions. If it's 21 quick questions, they're more susceptible to it. And it's also a great way to keep in contact with your community. All right. So let's take a look. If anybody's going to come up, you can hit the link, but I'm going to do a share screen. And you might find, this is just, I personally sharing this information because you can do the same thing. Everything I do, you can do too. And that's a fact. All right, here we go. Share. So let me get up to the first one. So I have the survey, right? It's asking the same questions from specific generations. And I'll tell you why I have to break them down by generation. Okay, so this sheet, it's the same 21 questions, right? It's going to be two-sided. The survey is going to be two-sided because that way, if you keep it two-sided, you're only dealing, you don't have too much paper. But anyway, this is for the boomer generation. So there are people that literally walk around in my community. Now, a lot of boomers don't hang outside. So I have to do a little door knocking and asking for people in this generation to answer some questions. And of course, I'm letting them know off the back what this survey is for. And it's genealogy research survey. And from the boomer generation, I'm only asking for their last name, first name, address, phone number, and email, only because it makes it official. It's not somebody that I made up to answer this survey. This is my proof. That's all it's for. And that will be addressed on the second page, what this survey is for and what I'll be keeping the record for. And I'm not asking, I'm very limited on what I ask them. I'm not asking them for any names per se in their family for the sake of their privacy, but for their names, letting them know so that they could be on our email distribution list so that they could see what the results of the survey is, and also to keep them in contact with Wyan Nation and directing them to our website so they can read our newspaper and things of that nature. So let's get it. The first row, of course, is the person that steps up. And of course, I'm going to give them some good old candy that Lou sent down. Their last name, their first name, their address, their phone number, and their email. Okay. That will go on our database for Connecticut. So I have like different databases for different states. Now, the first question is, did anyone in your family ever tell you that your race identity is African? And they're going to circle either yes or no. Okay. The second question is, who, if they circle yes, who told you that your race is African? Parents, grandparents, church leaders, school, community leader, or other? Okay. Did anyone ever tell you that your ancestors were kidnapped from Africa by white men and brought to America on slave ships? They're going to either circle yes or no. And if they circle yes, I'm asking, who told you that your ancestors were kidnapped from Africa by white men and brought to America on slave ships? And they're going to give their answer. And they're probably going to say TV. Or they're going to think, well, you know what? Nobody did tell me that. Did anyone in your family ever tell you that you were an Indian? And of course, we know our community, they're all going to say yes. And who told you that you were Indian? Some of them will say my mom. We all have the same answers. Some will say my mom. Some are going to say my grandmother or my dad or my granddad. Okay. They told us that. Okay. Now, and then I'm asking, what state were you born in? I'm interested to know what state they were born in. They're probably going to say, Connecticut or North Carolina. And that's really going to help me say, this person was born in North Carolina. I wonder if her roots are from there. And then I'm going to, what state was your mother born in? What state was your father born in? What state was your grandmother born in? See, I'm not asking them their people's names. I'm saying, what state was your grandmother born in? What state was your grandfather born in? Mother's side. This is mother's side, okay? What state was your grandmother born in? Father's side. What state was your grandfather born in? Father's side. And then it gets down to number 12. What state was your great-grandmother born in? Mother's side. What state was your great-grandfather born in? Mother's side. Okay, then number 14, what state was your great-grandmother born in? Father's side. What state was your great-grandfather born in? Mother's side. Okay, so now we're moving along. Number 13, what state was your great-great-grandfather born in? Mother's side. Okay, same question. What state was your great-great-grandmother born in? Father's side. What state was your great-great-grandfather born in? Father's side. Okay. Has anyone who told you that you are African provided you with proof? They're going to circle either yes or no. And I'm curious to know, what was the proof? And they're probably going to say, oh, word of mouth. And that's, of course, is not, that doesn't have a leg to stand on. Has anyone in your family ever tell you who your African relatives are? Of course, they're going to say no. Has anyone ever told you what part of Africa you came from? That this person in the family? Yes or no? What part of Africa did he or she tell you that you came from? And then, of course, what proof did they provide you with? Word of mouth or official government documents? Did you watch the movie Roots? They're going to say yes. Did this movie help influence your belief that you came from Africa? Yes or no? Do you go to church? Yes or no? What is your religious affiliation? Christian, Buddhist, they can put it all down here. What race is on your birth certificate? Colored, Negro, or black? Okay. That's what I want to know. Now, this survey is like so important. You know why? Because this is a boomer person. somebody born in 1946. So if they're going back 4 generations, all right, you're going back a lot of years. Because you're this person that's born in 1946, you're gonna ask their mother. So their mother was probably born in the 1930s or 1920s. Then their grandmother, that's gonna go back to the 1800s. Then their great grandma is gonna go back to the 1800s, and then their great 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 grandma is gonna be earlier in the 1800s, and then great, and it's really funny. So the last question, or was it blank? All right. So now if they're born in 1940s, all right, these boomers, they're definitely going to have birth certificates or something, because birth certificates came out in 1908. So they're going to have birth certificates. So that's the survey for the boomers. Okay. So what's helpful is what is so great. We have the boomers' name and address and email, and boomers love to read. Okay. And then you have the silent generation. Some of them are walking around, but I would, still allow them to fill out the boomer generation form, because I can always look at the year born and put them in an earlier generation, which is the silent generation. The silent generation folks don't walk around, but a lot of silent generation people are still alive. Those born before 1946, they're still alive. Okay. So we always have some sort of information. So, we get to my generation, and I with the Gen X survey, we have to add, it'll be more questions, because we have to add like 2 previous generations, because we go back further. Okay, our third generation, some of our great grandmas are, we try to go back 4 to 5 generations, 6. Okay, once you hit the 1800s, a wrap. But it gets interesting when you get to the millennials, because some of the millennials great that were born in the 80s, 1980, some of their grandparents, great grandparents was born in 1940s. For real. So we have to add more generations as we um go more in the future with the generations. Because see, right now, Gen Z, they can go back 7 generations, because this is Generation Z. They were born in 1995, so they could go back 7 generations. If I can go back 4, they can, to them, it's 3 more generations added on to how far they could go back. You get it? Give me a 1 in the chat. So Gen Z could go back like 6 and 7 generations, because they're only 30 right now. I can't believe Gen Z, the oldest Gen Z is 30 years old. And the youngest, I think, is what, about 13, if they were born in 2012. It's really, really cool. So it's going to be really cool sitting outside under my tent in my community, having them, because they're always outside. One thing about Gen Z and Gen X, okay, they're always outside. Gen Y is right here, the millennials. They could go back 6 and 7 generations. They're gonna have to, because they're so young. Like, it's like so shocking to me, because millennials born in 1980, they're like 45 now, and I'm like, whoa, what the heck, right? Let me see if they're 2025 minus 1980. 2025 minus 1980. Oh my God, they're 45. Unbelievable. The oldest millennial is 45 years old. And that's amazing to me, because I'm like, oh my God, they're catching up to me. So, and I have girlfriends who have babies that were born within the millennial years. Like my daughter is a younger millennial because she was born in 92. So she's at 33. And usually when they try to make the determination through the excess between 15 years gets you in a different generation. But yeah, so it's going to be very interesting and very fun with millennials filling this out. And so if they're 45, Gen Z, they're old enough to fill out the survey. They have to be of age, of course. So Gen Z, like I said, is 1995. They're 30 years old now. And that's like, wow, makes you want to cry. So these are going to be great. I'll have them in separate groups on my table. They'll fill them out, and it's going to be helpful to Wire because we're conducting our own research. We can't keep as a people. So as a people, we can't keep allowing people to um determine our future and our history. Okay. We have to go to our people ourselves. Otherwise, we get lumped in on what a survey says about one group of people or one race of people, and it gets applied to all of us. I don't like that. I don't. I have a real problem with that. So we have to go out and do our own research in our communities because no senator is going to come to our people in our community. Remember, we're supposed to be blacks, meaning worthless. Well, they try to say it's color, but I'm sorry, I'm not black. And I want to be politically correct when you're talking to me. Do not group me in a group just because I have black skin. And it's going to be interesting when you learn what's on our people's birth certificates, starting from the early 1900s. You're going to see color, Negro, and and it's just not cool at all. Because I mean, they literally labeled us, and we have to fix it. Okay, we have to do the same thing that other civil rights groups are doing, and it has to be facts. So this is why I tell our people, you really need to be careful. I think once they answer the questions on a survey, they're gonna be like, "Well, dag, even though," and they're gonna find out that they answered a survey because they're gonna find out that nobody's ever told them that they were African, and if they did, it was somebody in the community that told you that or led you to believe because of the arts and crafts they give in our community. They bring these little daishiki people in our communities to do arts and craft. So you think that's you. No, that's not you. How is a complete stranger gonna come to you and tell you who you are? That's so foul, it's disrespectful, it's very upsetting. Because now when they answer the survey, they're gonna be like, I told them that I saw roots, but I also said my grandmother didn't tell us that we was Africans. And now they're gonna be like, wait a minute. And I asked them, do they have proof? Did they ever give you proof? Because now it's gonna make sense because that comes from being led by leaders. That's why I asked them, did you go to church? And what did your church do? What did the biggest thing the church do? They start showing you pictures of Africa, of pastor going over to Africa, doing some research, some outreach work. Ain't got nothing to do with you. But wait a minute, is Pastor African? And has he been over here a long time? That's why I said you got to see who your pastor is. Is your pastor really you? Pastor could be from the islands and you just don't know it because there's a lot of people that swept up from the island, British Islands, and as the generations went along, they talk like me and you. But when they're home, they speak patois. So you have to be very careful. We are not the same people. We're not. That's why we have to be careful when we say that, oh, some white guys snatched my ancestors out of Africa and put them in chains on slave ships and brought them here in the United States. Now, that really makes a white person feel like really effed up. And it does. And I can very much relate with them because they do their genealogy and they know when their grandparents, third and fourth generation grandparents came here. They'd be like, oh, yeah, my grandmother came here in 1902. They're real exact. So now that really slaps United States government in the face because here's my colleague who's white and he's just automatically accused that he's comes from descendants of mean slave masters in the United States, and it's a freaking lie because they say, oh yeah, we came over, my father was an immigrant, he came over in 1902 from Italy. Okay, so if they came here from Italy, how in the hell does that make them a slave master in the United States? If they, oh, how long ago was slavery over? 1865. They were nowhere was near being here. And there's so many white people with that same story. So every white person or European that you see wasn't no damn slave master in the South or the North. So that's why you have to be very careful. And guess what? In 1900, their grandparent that came here could have very much well married and had a baby by an Indian here. That's a fact. But that still doesn't make them a slave master. It just makes the kid that they had either half Indian, half European. Okay. And then as they move forward, their kids have relationships with their race, but that it wipes away the blood lineage. So you got to be very careful. So this is why I'm doing this survey, because there's a lot of our people out there that have been led and misled by different religious or spiritual organization groups. I mean, like the Nation of Islam is very big. And yes, Malcolm X talk about the us Aboriginals, but then you have other Islamic or organizations that teach about the African ship. And that's why I asked on the survey, has your spiritual leader or pastor or however you identify them as, did they hand you proof that you came here on a slave ship? I mean, because if you ask them, say, hey, I know I've been a member of your congregation a lot of years, but do you have the proof that my family's from and we've been with you since the 70s as members of your church? Do your family have any records of us coming off the slave ship? And if they say, oh no, we never got that, then that's when you need to pass out right there up at the altar. I'm serious. Or start doing a damn Indian dance or something. Or something. I'm just keeping it a buck. Just like when your senators, when they get on the news and they're saying, the African American community, be like, well, wait a minute. Senator such and such, I am not African. Ooh. I mean, or Senator such and such, do you have, since you work for Congress, do you have any records that we could look at that says that we come from Africa? And he's gonna be like, hell no. Matter of fact, ask Donald Trump, do he got any records to be calling you African Americans? Matter of fact, ask Obama's ass, because he's the one that changed it, and ask him to please produce the fucking records that say that you are now African American, and tell his ass, big ear ass, to provide the goddamn proof, because that's what he should have provided before he did that shit. Remove Negro, because negro, okay, it depends. That word, you read it two ways. Negro is the way we pronounce it on our landmass. It's a Spanish word. Negro. It both means black. So, Obama, I believe that was a very disrespectful injustice. He should have provided, if he's going to change the fucking label, identity, you need to produce the fucking documents. If you and Michelle Obama have access to those documents, produce that shit and press them out in the fucking hoods. Because you never visit the hoods. Really, seriously. When you came to Connecticut, you went in the white suburbs. You didn't come your ass in the hood. Probably was best that you didn't anyway. But anyway, this is what I'm talking about. And I'm sorry to be vocal because it really, really upsets me. It really, really upsets me. The way society looks at our people. And they always have when they wrote us out of history. And when you look at the people in the picture and the way society looks at us, and I'm going to tell you what we went through to all people watching, instead of seeing us as Indians here on the landmass. You look at her here. Ooh, these little black, ugly, dirty people, filthy, ugly. How are they ugly? Because of their skin color? Look at her hair. It's kinked up and nappy and disgusting. That's how society looked at us that live in the inner cities. Okay? That's how they still look at us as Indians, former enslaved Indians. And they still, in their hearts, see us like that. And that's a fact. None of them come to our communities to do surveys and pay this type of attention to us. The leaders that come around and probably give you a popsicle or a fucking ice cream sandwich if you vote for me, and a little fucking piece of candy, a piece of mint for voting. Thank you for voting. But have no real interest in you. If a leader is going to have interest in you, they're going to conduct surveys on you to get what's in your mind out. There's no political surveys that come in our community. The only time you get a survey is when you're going in to vote and they ask you to circle the bubble if you think your municipality should build this or build that. That's it. And you don't hear shit more. But you know what? The damn structure goes up that they're going to build. Not personal. They don't come in there because they don't have that type of interest on us. So what we do as idiots, and we need to stop this, is fighting over their research. We need to do our own. So now we can say, and we can use our own damn language. How many people in the hood? Because wait a minute, don't get it twisted now. We're not just Wire. We have other business as names strictly to work in our hoods. Hold up. Let me get it twisted. We're not just Wire. For our research work that we do in our hoods, honey, yes, we are inner city on here. We are also the National Inner City Hood Organization. So under that, which you see on our letterhead, because we're not just Wire, and we're Wire Nation, we're Wire Tribe, and we are also the National Inner City Hood Organization. And so when we do go out, as you could see, and I'm sorry I didn't show this on our letterhead as a tribe. If you could see on our letterhead over here in the corner where our newspaper is, we're Copper Colored Chronicles, we're the Wire Nation, we're the Wire Tribe, and we're also on the far right over here, National Inner City Hood Organization. And that's what we'll be doing our research work under. So this is what I mean when I say that I pull away from people in YouTube. You know, I have my favorite channels, but our asses got work to do. So I have to be out in my state. And I'll be conducting these surveys. And this is statewide. Okay. I'll be sending some of these surveys to my members, so that they could have some folks, the funnest generations are all of them. I can't pick a favorite. But of course, we're going to say boomers and silent generation because they're the oldest generations alive now that could really put us back further in history. And so I get so excited when I'm dealing with someone from the silent generation that can answer simple questions, and we could really draw up some conclusions and come up with some great percentages. Like 50, like 1,000 boomers said that they did see the movie Roots, but they're much older. They know their history before Roots even came out. Okay, Roots came out in the 70s, but prior to the 70s, they know prior to the 70s. Why? Because they were born in the 30s and the 40s. Okay, so they're able to tell you, no, Africa, no. My great, they know their great grandmothers, just like we know our great grandmas. My great grandma was born in 1908. Okay, so just like we know our great grandmas, they know their great grandmas too, and they're gonna know if being born in 1930 right now, that's a silent generation person. You're like, what? Let me see. If you were born in 1930, how old would you be today? 2025 minus 1930. You're 95 years old if you were born in 1930. Being born in 95-year-old knows who her mama is, they know who their grandma is, and they who know who their great-great-grandma is. All right? And they know their great-great-grandmas. And they're going to know, hey, okay, at this point, somebody came from Africa. They're going to know. This is why it's so important to get out to them now. Our silent generation and boomer generations are probably the most important generations to Gen X, because we have to get out and do this legwork. And by the time we get to Gen Z, they're all computerized, because Gen Z and millennials be like, wait a minute, hold up. They know the system. They know how to navigate through the system. They know, all the technical stuff. They'd be like, excuse me. And Lucretia, who's a millennial, she gonna step to the forefront. Excuse me, Senator, but you ain't getting my vote. That's why I love millennials, because they are a product of us. Because I see myself doing that. Excuse me, no, Now, I'm not talking about Central and South America, and I'm not saying that to be mean, but there are indigenous Indians on those landmasses, but my focus is where my people are from. My people didn't come from Central and South America, where there are other Indians on the landmass. And honey, may I remind you, they fine as hell in Peru and all these other little parts of South America. They fine as hell. But they're different Indians. Anyway, the focus is here because the focus is what the United States done to us, not what Central and South America done to us. Now, someone from like Central and South America would have to do their own research in their own country. But a lot of them know their history. But the brown skin ones that they're telling that they're African, no, they got to fix that shit, because a lot of them didn't come from Africa either in Central and South America. Now, India, they know their shit. They're already Indians. They know their shit. So they got their monuments and everything with the cornrows like mine in my head. So over there, I'm not talking about those areas. I'm only talking about the areas where my ancestors were affected, which is in their own land soil, and they're aboriginal to this soil. They didn't come here. They were already here. Before anybody came here, they were already here. So this is why this survey is so important, because, we will not be written out of history, because we don't die, we multiply. So this is why the survey is so important. If we continue to let people dictate our history and come up with conclusions, we're not included in those surveys, because we're a race of people that are not thought of. So we come up with our own official records and we post it out, and it becomes primary source information because the survey is happening in the time and in real time. And by the time you reach 2030, these will be ancestral records for them. Okay? And when we come up with our conclusion, when I come up with the conclusion, there's so many conclusions you're going to be able to come up with because there's 21 questions. And you're getting the answers from the boomer generation, Generation X, which is my generation. You're getting information from millennials and Generation Z. So by the time you get to like 2030 or 2040, the boomer silent generation becomes ancestors because we're so far up in history. And these records will become official. And you make them official by sending them to the government. We do all kinds of things. You sending them to the local and state governments. You're sending them the outcome of your survey. Excuse me. We interviewed 1,000, 3,000, 4,000 surveyed 4,000 people across the 50 states. None of them have any history of being from Africa. It's a lie. How dare you? You wrote us out, and it goes to the government officials. So you need to erase that race identity because there's no such thing as an African American. Because when they made it, they didn't provide you with proof that you came off the slave ship or voluntarily from Africa. You need the ancestors that voluntarily came here from Africa and we are their descendants. We are not. We cannot prove that. Just because we look like them, guess what? If I was light-skinned, I look like a lot of white people. If I was light-skinned, I look like a lot of Chinese people. So no, dude, you're not going to do that. And it's up to us. We continue to sit and not take the proper action. Fighting each other on YouTube is not going to resolve the issue because we're only fighting with ourselves. And we're fighting with people that aren't us, that hate us so much and are so jealous. And some of them is just content creation. But I myself don't have time for that type of bullshit. I like to make real things happen. Okay. And this survey is going to be a real thing. And you're going to see the results of it when I finish. And you're going to see who it goes to when I finish. Which brings me to the other dots of the segment. Now, connecting with the community, all right, is the surveys that we're going to be doing. That's how you connect with your community. And you're also understanding when you're connecting with your community and the people originally of your community, it's the people that are the same as you. Everybody is not us. And you're going to have fun finding that out. Say, well, you know, when people, like if people come up to me and they want to do the survey and they're from like Jamaica somewhere and say, I'm so sorry, but we're just trying to connect to the people who are officially from this main landmass that were originally here. And they don't understand that. They will. Now, if people from Jamaica can retrace their roots back to the mainland, more power to them. That's cool. Really cool. But my focus are those that never left the land, man. We never left the land, man. We never were put out in the islands. Now, those islands, prior to the United States purchasing any of them, like the Virgin Islands, that didn't come part of the United States until the 1900s. So they were not in our slave issue. Their issue was with the former British government that owned them. So their slavery, if there was any harsh things done to them in the Virgin Islands or whatever, that was done by the British government who owned them. But by the time the United States bought them, it was back in the night. Let's see, when did United States It's saying, oh shoot. When become U.S. territory in 1917. The United States Virgin Islands became a U.S. territory. Prior to U.S., it was not. You can look at this right here. Let's get it. This is what I'm trying to say, and I'm not being mean, but the United States Virgin Islands became a U.S. territory on March 31st, 1917, when the United States purchased the Danish West Indies from Denmark. This transfer followed the Treaty of Danish West Indies, signed on January 17, 1917. Prior to us, they were not in part of us. Seriously. It had nothing to do with United States. Not until 1917. They weren't part of our enslaved Indian story on the mainland, because they had to be purchased by the United States. From who? So it was a Danish West Indies. It had nothing to do with the 13 colony people or that took over the colony. The United States actually ended up purchasing them. So I'm trying to make sure you understand what I'm saying, so that when I am doing the surveys, I have to be very careful as a YA leader, because I can't put them in our history, is what I'm saying. Now, the British did come here, and the only people that threw people in islands from the mainland were the British. They took them out. They fought. This is during colonial times, and bought the Pequots and threw them out there. All right? But everybody ain't a Pequot. So, this is going to be really great. Hey, Smoke, it's going to be a really great survey to do. And the most exciting part, and I swear, I'm going to be knocking on doors, because I really need boomers and silent generations to fill out my surveys, because they hold the key as far back in our history. So if anybody would like to hit the link and let me know what other question I could put on there, because I could bring the survey to 25 questions, but I don't like to frustrate people, with responding to so many questions. Hey, my Lisa, Indian Radio, Anthony Lowe. I can, probably, because it's really exciting, and it's what I have to do. So my YouTube segments will not be 3, 4, and 5 hours long, because I have to rest my body, because some days during the week after work, when it's nice out, when it gets a little bit more warmer, I can go out and then begin conducting the survey. Right now it's a little chilly. Okay. But I'm going to go in my hood and set my table up and begin asking people to answer surveys. And I might take a ride to the city I was born in, Bridgeport. That's going to be really great, because based on the features, I know a lot of the boomers and silent generation, because guess what? They look just like their grandkids, like me. They do. So I'm like, you're Mr. Such and Such. Aren't you such and such grandmother? And that's always a really great feeling to have, and say, well, you know what? Could you come and fill this out? And it's going to be fun. And that those silent generation, even though they sound silent, they're really the opposite. They talk, because the silent generation love to tell folk tales, because they get it from their grandparents. Say, well, and they tell you, well, I've been in Bridgeport for 60 years. And I'm 90-something years old. No, I've been here about 50 years. I took my kids from the South. I was 40 years old, and I moved here to Connecticut. I've been here ever since. But they know their history from down South, because every year they go down South to Big Mama house to the funeral. But they want to get so far away from their annoying ass relatives in the South that I'm getting away. And they move to the inner cities. and they really have the great stories. So this is why I say a lot of us Generation X children were raised with Southern morals, and it like really stopped right after my generation. Millennials, now I'm not going to say all millennials, but a lot of millennials was not raised with Southern morals. They are like real hood. Okay, they have become Northern Indians, although their roots generate from the South. And the really interesting thing is I'm, taking a lot of pictures in the area in which I'm in, because Cherokees were every damn where. They got a Cherokee cemetery up the damn street. And I'm like, well, damn, wasn't they down south? The Cherokees were everywhere. And I'm willing to tell you that those damn Cherokee Indians was niggas, or half breeds. A lot of Cherokees are half breeds. Keeping it a buck. A lot of the civilized tribes are half breeds. Facts. So, yeah. So the things that we have to do, it falls in order. We conduct a survey, we gather the information, and we let the truth be known. Oh, I forgot the most important part on the survey. Woo. Wait a minute. I think I mentioned it shortly, but I'll show you what that looks like. I believe I already said it, but I just want to make sure that because I'm giving people ideas on what to do. All right. So on the survey, which is going to be on side 2, um, in here somewhere, you're going to let them know what the survey is going to be used for, and that their personal information is not going to be exploited or given, okay, to anybody. All right. That they're going to address issues in Congress in reference to the removal of African American, because it doesn't apply to so many people. Like when Africans come over here, they don't say they're African American. They say who they are. They're Nigerians. And you want Congress to remove it, because you can't take all those that stayed and that remain and put them as African American. You just cannot do that. And we're telling people why, because it's based on our survey, and Congress will get a copy of this. We have to. Well, we let them know what we're going to do, because that title, African American, got to go. You can't go from color to African American in history, because when all those silent generation and boomers began letting you know what's on their birth certificate, they're either going to say colored or Negro. For boomers and silent generation, all that's on their paperwork is colored and Negro. Negro meaning black. Yeah. So that's going to be very interesting. How are you going to have Negro Indians and all that? And we got all the articles that just like exploits us and saying really mean things like nigger Indians and all that stuff. That's us that they're referring to, society. But they got rid of that jargon. But we still have the official documentation that's concrete, because it matches our boomers and silent generation parents that are still alive. They went through that. Yes, indeed. Because they have the identification labels. They have the identification labels to prove it. Well, yeah, back then I was called a nigger. They was talking about it. They know. Because it was their grandparents that it happened to. Some of them just their great grandparent or their grandparent, because they're silent. You're talking silent generation, so it would more so be their grandparent and great grandparents. They put up with those crazy articles. That's still pain. So yeah, they when I see this, they gave us such a bad look when we moved to the inner cities. These little Indian babies. Okay. And it was very stressful for grandma and grandpa when they squished in because they felt like they were in a box. And you're talking about pushing people from acres of land into these disgusting buildings that are rat infested and everything, horrible living conditions. And they agreed to the conditions. Look at look at for a lot of millennials, um uh and Gen Z. These are their great 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 grandparents. But my grandparents, I'm looking at the clothes. It really fits my mother with the afro. So you're talking, in the 1960s, the afros I'm looking at. So this is painful. They became very depressed. So when foreigners come over here, they really have to understand, we have to let them see our life and our picture. This was our life. Coming off of this acreage, coming off of like 80, 50, and 80 acres of land and being pushed in a box. And it caused all kinds of family problems. Dad with all the kids squished in the house, ain't no room for them to just go and play in the field. You can't let them out in the hood because of the community. There's so much out there. There's dope, forensic needles, and everything from the 70s. You're scared. People in the hallway shooting up dope. That's what we went through in the 70s, watching that. So the people, we are those Indians that they still don't care about. And we have to go out and do surveys on our own people because nobody cares about enough of us, only for the political help to vote them in office. Okay. And it's oftentimes some white guy that don't even fucking live in the community, but what they have is an apartment that they can afford because their income is such where they can say, well, I'm gonna get this little apartment downtown of Hartford and keep it just so I can say I live at this address and I'll become the governor of the big city. And that's how they control our shit. And that's been going on for so long. A lot of the people that represent you do not live in your communities and they don't give a damn about you. And they're actually right. They say, well, I'm from Bethel, Connecticut. I service that area. I ain't got shit to do with Hartford. So it is what it is. So now I'm going to show you so you can laugh with people going out doing surveys and shit. Like I'm trying to do, like I'm doing, because they're going to follow me. And that's cool that they do that. But we're doing it for other reasons. Okay. So, which brings me to the next part of this lecturing. So we're connected with the community with doing the research, the genealogy questions, and that's how we connect. Okay. With your past or present communities. So living in the hood is a past for me because I no longer live in the city of Hartford or the city of Bridgeport, but I damn sure don't have to stop connecting with the people from my community that I was born and raised in, the community that brought me and made me the strong woman that I am. So this is called not turning your back on your past communities because you were there and we need to go and get information from them. I can give them information from when I was in the hood, but that's when I was a little girl. So we're dealing with past and present. I'm the past from the hood. Okay. And I'm going to fill out that survey because I can, because I remember my past life in the hood. Now I'm coming present. So that's connecting with your community. The second thing is once you do that and you see after you do the research and you add up all your percentages from the questions, my goodness, it's really gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt because we have the same continuous story across the 50 states and the inner cities. It's those percentages are gonna hurt because you can visually see what state governments have done to you and your identity when you see those percentages added up. So now we move on to bringing actions against state governments and agencies. Oh boy, oh boy. We get to go to them for this. And then at the federal level with our senators in Congress, it follows. Everything, you can't say everything on YouTube, but I'm telling you, this is real work. Real work. So if I have tools that I've earned in universities, I'm going to use those tools. We're supposed to. We're supposed to go use those research tools in our communities. But the beautiful thing about it is I don't have no foreigner over me telling me how to conduct my survey. I can do it my damn self and put a stamp on it. But when you're conducting this verbiage, like I was saying, on the second page, we do have to let them know, and they have to agree to it and sign the survey. If they don't sign it, you got to throw that damn survey away. But down here on the second, here's the second page. All right. Down in here, this section. All right. I'm just putting like a little, what do we call it? Let me just put some spaces. Ooh, 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 ooh. In this section, you got to tell them that they agree to the survey and they don't mind us reporting to our congressmen and our federal and state government that we have been misclassified and misled. Because you're going to get a percentage of who learned about this African shit in schools, community leaders that don't know you. I mean, and they never provided you with any proof or anything. So, in the United States government never provided you with, like I said, with Obama, they never provided with you proof that you're African American historically. Where's the damn proof? DNA bullshit is not admissible in court because if it was, there wouldn't be no white, purely white Indians in the 5 civilized tribes. I'm just keeping it a buck. So we're going to be conducting these surveys in our communities, and I'm looking so forward to it. A lot of times I like to knock on doors, but when you're doing surveys, if you're knocking on doors, you don't want to go in anyone's home. That's what you can't do. So I've been doing a lot of canvassing for a very long time, knocking on doors and things of that nature. And as a general rule, we don't go inside anyone's home. They can answer the surveys on the porch. That's why you have a clipboard. But oftentimes, someone in silent generation, they like to sit out on their porch, like on a little chair, and then they answer the questions. And then the beautiful thing about our community answering such a survey like that with Big Mama in the house, then the kids come out that are from my generation and which is Gen X. Then millennials come out on the porch. Grandma, what you doing? And they become interested, and you end up having this beautiful conversation. It brings back the conversation in the family. They say, well, Grandma, why you told us that we ended, but you ain't say all that. I want to fill it out too then. Then they want to become active. Like, well, Grandma, I knew I didn't feel that, but why you just didn't say? And Grandma just, very silent. That's why they call them a silent generation. But then they begin, now times have changed where they can have these conversations. Because oftentimes, and it becomes tearful, with your grandmother that's in her 90s, when they say, just like, it don't make a difference today if they say we Black or if they say we Indian. It don't matter because we never mattered. And that's the truth. And that's the utmost truth. When grandma tell you that, well, yeah, we Indian. It just don't matter. They say we black Indian, we black. So they say, well, grandma, why you ain't never, just like really talk to us about it? Because we don't matter. It didn't matter when we was Indians, and it don't matter today because we niggas. And that's painful. And that's pretty much the story you get from grandma. We didn't matter back then, and don't matter today either. But we're going to make it matter because now we can go in our communities and give them these surveys so that they see that they matter. And I think that this will really touch silent generation granny's heart, being 90 something years old, because the first time in her life, somebody that looks like her is coming around and asking these questions of concern. So now grandma could go out saying they don't woke up and they coming around, they thinking about us. And they can rest in peace. And it could be now be recorded in our history so that 5 generations in the future can say, woo, this person went around, these people went around, these Indians went around to great grandma and asked her these questions on this survey. Our documents become historical records. They ask grandma these questions. So we're talking when I'm gone. These are recorded historical documents. Okay? So we got to make history. We got to keep our history recorded. And I am from Wire going down. So my time will be lessened on YouTube because I'll now be able to go out and be comfortable in my own community. I'm never scared of my own community. I still drive from where I live now all the way to the hood. I live in Middletown, Connecticut, and I have to drive all the way to Hartford, which is like a 20-minute ride, and get fish. I have to go in the hood. If I want to get fish, real fish, I go all the way to the hood because I know the hood got the fish I want. I want my damn whiteys or my porgies. And they split them up for me. I got to go to hood. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to, I've been on for a while, hour and 21 minutes. I didn't think I would be on that long. Hey, none of your business. Hello, William Cook. How you doing? So the link is pinned to the top. I'm going to play a little music, and I would really like to hear your thoughts about this survey that I'm going to do. And if you are interested in helping out Wire in your state, where you can make a bunch of copies and get people to fill them out and get them back to me, you could have them scanned in and emailed to me. That would be helpful. Let me see. I'm going to play a little music in hopes that you come up. I know I got that thing somewhere. So I would like your thoughts on Wire's attempt to put out and get out some recorded history for our future generations, because we have to do it. Nobody is coming from out the clouds on a horse to do this for us. We are the ones that have to do this. And that's a fact. So the link is at the top, and you're welcome to come up here. my loves. So this is what I'm about, and this is what I'm gonna do. So, and when I do go out and start doing the surveys when I'm sitting outside, I am gonna be live doing it, so you could watch me. I mean, we know how to interact with our own people. That's very easy for me. Okay, but to see it done live, the surveys where they pull up to my table, and what I'm gonna have is a big, huge this what is it? This will be out there so that they can say, well, wait a minute. People will be like, damn, I'm that old or I'm that young. Where is it? My generation breakdown. I always have it here. This will be very big poster size on the easel. The generation breakdown of years. So we're gonna be dealing with the traditionalists, who are the silent generation, the boomer generation, X, Y, and Z. Alpha is too young. We ain't even going there. Some of them ain't even born yet, and neither is beta. And the alpha generation, they're only 3 years old. They was born in 2022. So we don't have to worry about them. But this information will be there for them when they grow up, including the Beta generation. Historical information. We have to create our own historical information. And we're going to leave things like this, keep things that's so important like this. This is important because it's a depiction of us in our Indian outfits with our bow. This is how we were portrayed. And when Ben Franklin wrote, this is so important. This is very real in 1751. So, and people have issues with this. People like Not a Coincidence and all of them. They can't read and they can't comprehend. And it's sad that our people are to that level. It's really painful when our people can't read and comprehend. When it tells you who's in America. America is wholly so. And then he goes into why increase the sons of Africa. Because they always looked at us, even if we were over here, even us being here as Africans, just because our skin is brown. Because where they come from, they're more closer to Africa than we are. So my thing is, people like Not a Coincidence that have a problem, and I think he's Arab or something. I don't know. When they, I don't know what his race is. Some folks keep saying that he's Arab or something like that, and not understanding what tawny is, because I shared this over on Smoke's channel. So if they have a problem with Benjamin Franklin's description of the world, then write Congress. Because this is an official transcript. He wrote this. And his observations over here was so many black people. He said, can we get some white people over here that look like us? And that's exactly what happened. So we keep things like this because it's monumental. And, you have to, some people back in the 60s and 70s knew that our identity was to be hush hush, but some folks didn't care in the 60s and 70s. This dude right here with his Indian attire, he didn't give a damn. He ain't hiding his race for nobody. You had people that were like that. He was like, hell no, I'm wearing my original attire. And this picture is old, man. I know this is the 60s or the 70s, early 70s, because of the long dresses. In the 70s, we began wearing shorter dresses, But in our church, we wore long dresses. So, yeah, we have to be the ones to go out and get this information from our people in our communities and start creating our own historical information. And that's what I plan to do. So, again, I will not be on YouTube for hours and hours, and I can't do it. Now, I'll sit back in the bed and watch some of the other platforms, but that's just watching it just to get the laugh. But my real work is in my community. And like I said earlier, we're not just the Wire Tribe. We're not just the Wire Nation. We are also the national inner city hood organization. Okay. So when I'm out doing our research work in the community, this is who we are when we go out in the community. Oh, yes. So again, I'll be live doing it so you can watch what goes on in my interactions and conversations with the people in my community. Okay. I'll never, ever forget where I come from. And the best feeling in the world with our people is when you come out and ask them these questions. And it's going to be tickling. I know some people are going to be like, damn, no, I don't got no proof. But see, we have to get to our people to say, huh? And don't let nobody give you no proof, especially from no damn DNA. We're going to show them all. Oh, William, my family's up there in Boston. They're in Dorchester. I got a lot of family in Dorchester, William. When they moved from South Carolina, a lot of our family came. Well, all of them came to Connecticut first. Okay. And then it was just too crowded. Like half of them, hey, Demita, half of them went up to Dorchester. And they've been there since. Whew, I want to say the 60s because I remember them coming around to visit us during holidays like Thanksgiving. A bunch of them that came down from Boston. Oh, Nanya, hey. Thank you, sweetheart. And Demita, Indian Radio. So if you want to help out, just hit me up and I could send you the 3 surveys. For folks that's coming in late, I'll go through the questions one more time. I thought somebody would come on a panel, but you don't have to. That's completely fine. But oh boy, it always jumps out if I don't keep it open. There it is. So what I'm going to be doing when it gets a little warmer, like when it's like 70 degrees, I'll go out because that's some really great weather and do these surveys in my community. Have them fill out these surveys, and give me some candy. But I'm going to be asking these questions. And, when you ask your survey questions, you don't want to overload it. And 21 questions is really great. And it's just to study a genealogy. And these are the questions. Did anyone in your family ever tell you that your race identity is African? They're going to circle yes or no. And I'll be there, right with them to say, well, who told you that your race is African? For the most part, I suspect no. And if they were told that, their parents, grandparents, church leaders, school, community leader, or other, and they could put in there other who. Did anyone ever tell you that your ancestors were kidnapped from Africa by white men and brought to America on slave ships? And they're going to answer yes or no. And then they're going to question 3B. Who told you that your ancestors were kidnapped from Africa by white men and brought to America on slave ships? I want to know. Number 4A, did anyone in your family ever tell you that you were an Indian? For the most part, everybody's going to circle yes, because that's what our grannies told us. And who told you that you were Indian? And you can put the answer there. And then you really want to know, get a feeling of how long that person has probably been on this landmass. What state were you born in? Because it depends on their age. You're going to know what state they were born in. What state was your mama born in? What state was your father born in? What state was your grandmother born in on mother's side? And they're going to put the answers right over here, clear, so that we could get some really great percentage numbers. What state was your grandfather born in, mother's side? Then what state was your grandmother born in on your father's side? State was your grandfather born in on your father's side? What state was your great grandmother born on your mother's side? What state was your great grandfather born in on your mother's side, your great grandfather? These questions, it goes all the way down. Then it goes to great, 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 because again, those boomers that are in those silent generation that answer the survey, they're going to be able to tell you. Okay. And it stops there. Great great grandfather, blah blah blah. Has anyone told you that you are African? Has anyone who told you that you are African provided you with proof? This is where it gets funky. Has anyone told you that you are African provided you with proof? They're going to say yes or no. And if they say yes, I ask, what proof? What was the proof? Has anyone in your family ever tell you who your African relatives are? Has anyone ever told you what part of Africa you came from? And then you go to 17B. What part of Africa did she tell you that you came from? That's going to be crazy, because I really like to know, because ain't nobody going to be able to tell you. What proof did they provide you with? Word of mouth or official government documents? Did you watch the movie Roots? That's very important. Did this movie help influence your belief that you came from Africa? That's 18B. 19. Do you go to church? And it's good to know what religious affiliation they were in. For the most part, you know they're going to put Christian. What is the race on your birth certificate? Is it colored, Negro, black, or is it blank? So, and then we go with Generation X. These are going to be the same question. The only thing with Generation X, we get to add great, 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 because the younger you are, the more great greats you add. And this is like, by the time we get to millennials, this is their sheet. They're going to have a bunch of great, great greats, because going back when you get to Generation Y, and then you get down to Generation Z, my great grandma being Generation X makes it their 7th or 8th great great grandma, because the great grandmas are so young these days that it pushes them back to like 5 and 6 and 8 generations. So this is going to be really interesting with the different generations answering these questions in our community. So that's community attachment, and that's community work. When you're in a tribe, you want to know your community. Be like, hey, well, you ain't got no proof you African, you're not African. I can tell you right now. But my email direct, my personal, all right, there's my email right there. You might want to copy it, because everybody always mix it up. You got to spell those exact letters and numbers. So yeah, I'm not completely finished with the survey, because I got to put the verbiage down there on what we're going to use the survey for. And I'll be able to help give you that information on what you need to write, so that you can protect yourself and the people that's doing the survey, because we're not asking them any names, only their names, so we can keep in contact with them and let them see the different results of the percentages, and they'll be able to see how many people from their generations responded in the manner in which they is really cool. So yeah, so I addressed the questions in the manner to be yes or no, or my grandma, but we don't need their names. Okay. So that's all I have today, you guys. I'm going to go and relax and get some rest. Just get some rest, because I'm tired. I've been up since like 6 working, and I wanted to come in and do this show. And I'll probably see you tomorrow with the other verbiage at the bottom, because it's legal. You have to be really careful in the section for them to sign after they do the survey, because they have to agree to the survey and agree to let us use it for what we're using it for. And it's just not to put their names out there, but because we have their information, that's private. Nobody will get their emails. Yeah, it's almost like a census, Smoke. It is, but with the information, it's more geared to the race, of course, and you get so much percentage off of it on, like, wow, a bunch, like, out of 1,000 boomers responded, 50% of them, 95% of them said that they were Indian and they knew they were, and blah blah blah. You know how it goes. And then when we get down to the millennials, like millennials, they know there, because millennials today, they already know I'm Indian. And Generation X, see what they say across the states. It'd be really interesting. But I really want to know how many boomers watch Roots. Probably all of them, because they were younger when they came out. Yes, Nanya. I really would like to see the percentage. I know it's going to be a high percentage when the question, did you watch the family Roots? Did you watch the movie Roots? And stuff. And if that influenced you, because if, like, I'm asking Gen X and millennials, who told you was African, they're not coming up with no answer. And we want to know. Well, what I told the audience, Smoke, is that once we finish the survey, we get to write it up. You know how you look at graphs and things of that nature? I know how to make the graphs, a report. Submit a report to Congress, because it's important, and it begins to look like a pool report. Let me try and pull up a pool census. You know how you get your reports? 50% of these people don't know, ain't never, they don't have this on there. Oh, okay, there's something wrong. We got this African American label on these people, and they're not Africans. It becomes an official report. Like, we got to do something about this, because these people aren't African Americans. And because if they don't remove it, it gets forced removal, like what they did. Because now people will wake up across the states and they'll correct their IDs. African American to disappear by us not checking off those particular boxes. It disappears. So either they're going to cooperate with us, or we're going to do it ourselves. Because it's like, well, I'm not African. They don't even like us. Or you know how our people's attitudes are in the hoods and all over. So no, I'm Indian. And we have all those newspapers and articles of the nigger Indian. Who was they calling the niggers back then? And the Negro. That's us. So we're going to go revert back to what this federal government referred to us as, because we never left. We didn't die. We're still here. So they become reports, and we get to send them to our congressmen and congresswomen. That one report is going to make a huge difference, because now we got numbers. We don't got to line up in no assembly line in front of Congress out there protesting. We could do it silently, send it to our representatives. And, you take actions. Those same people are now allowed to get in class action lawsuits and file suits against different states and the federal government, because ain't nobody told Obama asked to do that, but a few black people. It's Cabbage Patch Kids. Yeah, we got some old Cabbage Patch Kids out there. I remember in high school when those Cabbage Patch came out when I was in high school, and girlfriends that I went to high school with, they was carrying them Cabbage Patch Kids in their to school as though they were their babies. It was funny. Just seeing them. Now you think back, they was carrying Cabbage Patch, and if they couldn't afford a Cabbage Patch doll, the teacher told them to bring in an egg, and they have to be very careful with the egg. It can't break. So you're walking around the school with an egg like it's a baby, and you can't drop the egg. If you do, you get a flunking score. That was crazy. I seen that in high school. That's because so many young girls were getting pregnant back when I was in high school. A lot. A lot of them were getting pregnant very young. So here I am, waddling off. I'm getting ready to get off. It's 4:46. I love y'all. And hit me up. I'll see you guys tomorrow with the verbiage that I put on the bottom to protect you so that you can do the survey. You can get it out to senators and representatives and things of that nature. So love y'all again. And y'all keep it cool.